When we think about plants, we usually picture them as these quiet, green oxygen factories for the planet, right? They take in our carbon dioxide and give us fresh air to breathe. And look, that's totally true. But it's only about half of the story.
What if I told you that alongside producing all that oxygen, plants are also consuming it? What if they're constantly breathing out carbon dioxide, pretty much just like we do? Yeah, it sounds a little weird, I know. So let's dive into this pretty incredible hidden side of plant life.
Okay, so this whole process is called plant respiration. And it's actually pretty simple when you think about it. Just like us, plants can't run on raw food. They have to take the sugars they make, that glucose from photosynthesis, and convert it into actual usable energy. This is the energy that powers everything they do, from growing a new leaf to fighting off a disease.
To really get a grip on this, you got to look at the two sides of a plant's energy budget. There's the making food part, and then there's the using food part. It's really a tale of two completely essential and opposite processes.
So photosynthesis, that's an anabolic process. It's just a sciencey way of saying it builds things. It takes simple stuff and builds complex sugar molecules, storing the sun's energy inside them. Respiration is the exact opposite. It's a catabolic process, meaning it breaks down those same sugar molecules to get that stored energy back out. It's pretty straightforward. One makes the fuel, the other one burns it.
And this is where the really key differences pop up. So photosynthesis uses CO2 and releases oxygen. But, and this is a big but, it only happens when there's light and only in the green parts of the plant. Respiration, on the other hand, does the reverse. It uses up oxygen and releases CO2. And it happens all the time, day and night, in every single living cell of that plant.
And that right there is probably the most important thing to remember. When the sun goes down, photosynthesis just stops. It clocks out for the day. But respiration, it never stops. It's the 24/7 engine, just humming in the background, keeping the whole plant alive and running. So how do they actually pull this off? Let's kind of shrink ourselves down and take a quick look inside a plant's cellular energy factory to see how this all works. The whole point of respiration isn't just to burn sugar. It's to capture its energy in a very special molecule called ATP. The easiest way to think of ATP is like cellular cash. It's the universal energy currency for pretty much all life. Anytime a cell needs to do any work at all, it has to spend some ATP. Now, turning that one sugar molecule into a big payday of ATP happens in three main stages. You can think of it as a little roadmap for how plants breathe. First is glycolysis, then the Krebs cycle, and finally, oxidative phosphorylation.
Okay, first up, glycolysis. Now don't worry about all the crazy details you see here. The only thing you need to know is really simple. Out in the main fluid of the cell, one molecule of glucose gets snapped right in half. That's it. It's just the first step that gets the ball rolling.
Next up, those two smaller pieces head into the cell's powerhouses, the mitochondria, for the Krebs cycle. And again, don't sweat the complexity. Just think of this cycle as a little disassembly line. It breaks those molecules down even further, releasing some CO2, but what it's really after is the main prize, super high-energy electrons. And that brings us to the grand finale. Those high-energy electrons we just collected get passed down a chain, kind of like a bucket brigade at a fire. At the very end of the line, guess who's waiting? Oxygen, the very oxygen the plant breathed in. It acts like a powerful magnet, pulling those electrons through the whole chain, and that force is what generates a ton of ATP. So what's the final payout from that whole process? From just one single molecule of glucose, the plant can generate around 32 units of that ATP energy cache. That is a massive payoff, and it's all thanks to oxygen being there at the end to seal the deal. So, we've seen how it works deep down in the cells. But what about the whole plant itself? The leaves, the stems, the roots. How does it get the oxygen it needs in the first place? Well, plants have a few different ways to do this. For their leaves and any green stems, they use these tiny little pores called stomata. Woody stems and tree trunks have special openings in the bark called lenticels. And, this is the one a lot of people forget, the roots breathe too, using their tiny root hairs to pull oxygen right out of the little air pockets in the soil.
And this is a huge difference between us and them. We have lungs. Fish have gills. We have a central spot for breathing. Plants, they don't have anything like that. Their system is totally decentralized. Every living part of the plant is responsible for getting its own oxygen.
So, knowing this actually solves a really common mystery for anyone who's ever tried to keep a houseplant alive.
Why is overwatering so bad for them?
The answer is really simple. You're suffocating their roots. When the soil gets totally waterlogged, all that water fills up the little air pockets the roots need to get oxygen. Without oxygen, the root cells can't do respiration, they can't make that ATP energy, and they literally drown.
Okay, so now let's zoom way, way out. This whole breathing process isn't just happening in one little plant. It's happening in every single plant, all across the entire globe, all at the same time. And when you add all of that up, well, the impact is just staggering.
So, on a planetary scale, the amount of CO2 that plants pull in through photosynthesis is absolutely huge. But as you can see from this chart, the amount of CO2 they breathe back out into the atmosphere through respiration is also colossal. It's a two-way street.
In fact, if you add it all up, plant respiration is responsible for about half of all the carbon dioxide that gets released from every land-based ecosystem on Earth every single year.
And get ready for this because this number is just wild. The total amount of CO2 that plants breathe out every year is about 8 times more than all the CO2 humans release from burning fossil fuels. Now, just to be clear, that's not a bad thing. It's a totally natural and essential part of a healthy, balanced cycle. But what it shows us is that this huge, hidden breadth of the planet is one of the biggest forces in the entire global carbon cycle, and it's a piece of the climate puzzle that we absolutely have to understand. So that leaves us with one last, really crucial question. We know this process is sensitive to temperature, so as our planet gets warmer, what's going to happen to this giant, invisible breadth of the plant world? Is it going to speed up? Slow down? That's one of the biggest questions that climate scientists are racing to answer right now.